Okay, let's unpack this. You've maybe traveled, scrolled online, perhaps tried ordering ships somewhere and got, well, something totally unexpected. If you've done any of that, you've definitely bumped into the glorious, sometimes, head-scratching world of English variations.
Absolutely.
So today we're doing a deep dive into the fascinating differences between American English and British English using the sources you've shared.
It's amazing, isn't it? A language spoken globally, but the way it's evolved on different sides of the Atlantic. It tells us so much about history, culture, just how we communicate.
Exactly.
We're going beyond just like listing different words. We want to explore why these differences are there and what they really signify.
Right. Our mission here is basically to give you a shortcut to understanding these quirks. We're talking pronunciation, totally different words, those spelling choices that seem odd.
Grammar points, idioms that can completely confuse you.
Yeah, how culture shapes it all, and definitely some of those hilarious real-life mix-ups the sources mentioned, and, where it might all be heading.
Sounds good. Let's get into it.
Okay. So the very first thing usually that hits you isn't even a word, it's just the sound.
The sound, yeah, the accents are obviously distinct,
Mm.
but it goes deeper, doesn't it, into specific sounds, rhythms.
It really does. And probably the most famous one, the one everyone kind of latches onto, is the R sound.
Ah, the rhotic versus non-rhotic distinction.
Exactly. In American English, we're pretty much unapologetically rhotic. We say that R after a vowel, end of a word, middle, it's there.
Like-
Car, hard, better, you hear it.
Right, whereas in standard British English, like RP, that post-vowel R often just disappears unless there's a vowel sound coming right after it. So car is more like hard, hard, yeah. And better might be better?
Which brings us to that classic example from the sources, butter.
Oh, yeah, but
Hearing butter when you
okay.
expect that hard American R can really, short circuit your brain for a second.
It can. Such a
Well, it's-
tiny sound difference. But it points to this huge phonetic split that happened over time.
And it's not just the R, is it? Stress and intonation patterns are different too.
Definitely. You can hear a word, recognize it, but the emphasis is just off compared to what you're used to.
Like advertisement. We tend to stress the second syllable, advertisement.
While in British English, it's typically stressed on the first. Advertisement.
Or, mobile. My mobile phone. Rhymes with, I don't know, global.
And our mobile phone. Rhyming more with smile. These small shifts, they can actually make words sound almost unfamiliar sometimes.
The sources also mention schedule. Americans usually say schedule.
And Brits often say schedule.
Yeah, just that skid versus she sound. It's a tiny thing, but it feels surprisingly different depending on which one you grew up with.
Exactly. These phonetic habits, they just get baked in, and they shape how you hear the language.
Okay, so moving beyond how it sounds, let's get to maybe the most obvious bit, the words themselves.
Ah, the vocabulary. This is where it gets really fun, I think. The sort of secret code feeling.
Totally. Different words for the exact same things you use every day.
It's true. You think you know English, then you land across the pond and suddenly your apartment is a flat.
Your elevator is a lift.
Your truck becomes a lorry.
Your nice warm sweater is a jumper.
A baby's diaper is a nappy.
The fuel for your car, gasoline, is petrol.
And then the food minefield. Your French fries,
Are chips.
which means your chips. Like potato chips.
Are criffs.
The great chips versus crisps. Confusion. The sources really nailed this one. Ordering chips in London and expecting, Lay's or something, getting a pile of hot fries.
Or the reverse. Asking for chips with your burger in New York and getting a cold bag of Walkers instead of fries.
It's like a rite of passage for travelers, isn't it? And it just perfectly shows this vocabulary split.
It really does. And it pops up in education, too. Like in the U.S., we talk about being in a certain grade at school.
Whereas we talk about being in a certain year, so what you call first grade.
Is year 2 in the UK system. It throws you off a bit.
And the word college means quite different things, too.
Yeah, for Americans, college is often just used for any university-level education. Going to college.
Right, but in the UK, college usually means something else, maybe a further education college or a technical college. It's generally distinct from a university that grants degrees.
Got it. And then there's the big one, the potential mega misunderstanding the sources flagged, public school.
Oh, yes. That one's crucial.
In America, public school means the normal state-funded school system that, well, most kids attend.
But in the UK, a public school is usually a very old, very prestigious, and often very expensive private school. like Eton or Harrow.
The meanings are basically opposites.
Completely opposite. So yeah, understanding these vocabulary bits is pretty key for just, getting by.
Okay, now let's look at how these words actually get written. Spelling. It's subtle sometimes, but pretty consistent differences.
And a lot of the American way, as the sources point out, goes back to one guy. Right. Noah Webster.
The dictionary man. Back in the early 1800s, he deliberately set out to make American spellings simpler, a bit different, partly for printing costs, partly for, national identity.
Makes sense. And the most famous change is probably dropping the U from words like color.
Right. Becomes COLOR. Favor becomes FAVOR. Honor, HONOR. To me, it just looks cleaner, maybe?
Maybe. Though Brits might argue the U looks a bit more traditional. Or classier, perhaps. Another big one is the verb endings. We often use E's,
Yeah.
R-E-A-L-I-S-E.
And we tend to go with E, R-E-A-L-I-Z-E, organize, recognize, bringing in that Z sound.
Yeah, the sources mention some British-style guides actually accept IAZ now, but IAZs is definitely still more common in practice.
Okay. And then there's the ver versus thing, like center, C-E-N-T-R-E in British English.
Becomes center, C-E-N-T-E-R in American. Same with theater, T-H-E-A-T-R-E versus theater, T-H-E-A-T-R.
And don't forget that metal, A-L-U-M-I-N-U-M.
Ah, yes, aluminium.
Which is shortened to A-L-U-M-I-N-U-M. Aluminum.
Right. The sources kind of hinted that saying aluminium with all the syllables can sound a bit formal, maybe slightly posh to Americans.
Maybe a little. And aluminum might sound, I don't know, abrupt to a Brit. It's funny how spelling affects even how we feel about the sound.
It does. These little choices, they reflect bigger things, Webster's project, or maybe just holding on to older forms.
Definitely. Okay, let's wade into slightly trickier waters. Grammar. These differences aren't always screamingly obvious, but they can make sentences feel just a bit off sometimes.
Yeah, they're subtle but important. One classic example the sources highlighted is collective nouns, words like team, government, family, committee.
Right. In American English, we almost always treat those as single units, singular. So the team is winning, the government is deciding.
But in British English, it's really common to use a plural verb. The team are winning. The government are deciding. It emphasizes the individuals within the group.
That sounds so wrong to my ear. The team are. But okay, standard in the UK. Focus on the members.
Exactly. It's a different way of looking at the same concept.
Yeah.
Perfectly normal over here.
That one takes some getting used to. What about past tense verbs?
Yeah, sometimes we use irregular forms where Americans use the regular E. So an American learned or dreamed.
Might be learnt or dreamt for a Brit. L-E-A-R-N-T, D-R-E-A-M-T.
And maybe the most talked about grammatical difference is the past participle of get.
Oh, gotten.
Right. Americans use gotten all the time. I've gotten better. He's gotten the job.
Whereas in British English, we overwhelmingly just use got. I've got better. He's got the job.
The sources had a funny point about this, that gotten sounds incredibly old-fashioned to Brits. Like something out of...
Jane Austen, yes, I saw that. Like, it's from the 1800s.
It really does have that sort of dusty historical feel for us. And then there are those tiny little words prepositions. They cause so much confusion.
Oh, yeah. Americans say on the weekend.
While we say at the weekend.
And the hospital thing. Americans are in the hospital.
And Brits are just in hospital. No, the vet.
In hospital. It always sounds like something's missing to me. Like, in which hospital? But okay, it's standard.
Just standard BRE. These little grammar things, they show how even the basic wiring of the language can drift apart, reflecting slightly different ways of thinking, maybe.
Okay, shifting from the wiring to the decoration. Let's talk idioms and expressions.
Ah, the fun stuff. The phrases that make perfect sense to locals but are just baffling otherwise.
Exactly. Like if an American is really tired, they might say, I'm beat.
Whereas a Brit would probably say, I'm knackered.
Knackered, which sounds quite intense, maybe even a bit rude to American ears.
Possibly. Or if an American doesn't feel like doing something, I don't feel like it.
A Brit might say, I couldn't be bothered. Or sometimes just, I can't be bothered.
Meaning too lazy, basically. And if an American is teasing you, they're pulling your leg.
The British equivalent is often taking the mickey. Or just taking the mick.
Right. And then the sources gave us that ultimate cautionary tale. Involving the...
oh, no. The fanny pack.
Fanny pack, yes.
As an American, you mean that little pouch you wear around your waist, right?
Exactly. But, and this is a big but, in British English, fanny is... Well, it's a very vulgar slang term for female genitals.
Oh, dear.
So, yeah. Walking into a shop in London And asking loudly for a fanny pack is going to cause some serious awkwardness, maybe some giggling.
What's the safe word then?
The British term is the much, much safer bum bag.
Bum bag. Got it. Note to self, bum bag in the UK.
Definitely. It just shows how careful you need to be. Innocent words can have completely different, sometimes really embarrassing meanings.
These differences, they don't just happen randomly, do they? They're all tied up in the cultures where the dialects grew up.
Absolutely. The sources touch on this, the forces shaping the language. American English was hit by wave after wave of immigration, right?
Yeah, Spanish, German, Yiddish, Italian, so many others, all feeding words and rhythms into the mix. A real melting pot effect.
Plus, you've got the huge global impact of American tech, from Silicon Valley, American business, and obviously Hollywood movies, pop music.
Constantly pushing new words, often AME versions, out into the world.
Whereas British English, especially the more standard forms, has been shaped more by, centuries of its own island history. The monarchy, the old class system echoes institutions like the BBC setting standards for ages.
Even things like cricket having their own idioms.
Exactly. And the sources rightly remind us that within both countries, there's this incredible tapestry of regional dialects, too.
Oh, for sure. The sounds and words of the American South are so different from Boston or New York or California.
And same in the UK. You've got Cockney in London, Scouse in Liverpool, Geordie up in Newcastle, Mancunian in Manchester, plus distinct Welsh, Scottish, Northern Irish variations.
It's crucial to remember American and British are just big umbrellas, aren't they?
Definitely. Covering countless local ways of speaking.
And, well, inevitably, all these differences sometimes lead to just pure, sometimes pretty funny misunderstandings, the real oops moments the sources talked about.
Oh yeah, those anecdotes are great. The rubber story is a classic.
Right. An American student in the UK innocently asking to borrow a rubber.
Meaning, of course, a pencil eraser.
But in American slang, rubber is very commonly used to mean, well, a condom.
Exactly. So you can imagine the look of horror on the British classmate's face. Utter confusion and embarrassment all around.
Yikes. Or the other way around, an American tourist in London asking where the restroom is.
Expecting directions to the toilet or the WC.
But restroom sounds quite formal, maybe even a bit euphemistic or strange to a British ear.
It does. They might genuinely think you mean a lounge area, a place to actually rest and point you there instead of to the loo.
You need to ask for the loo or the toilet in the UK?
Pretty much, yeah. Those
Yeah.
stories just highlight that these aren't just like theoretical differences, they happen in real life.
They really do. Causes genuine mix-ups if you're not aware.
Shows you need a bit of patience and definitely a sense of humor sometimes.
With all this history and culture and constant change, what's the future look like? Is one going to, like, take over? American or British English?
That's the big question, isn't it? American English certainly has a lot of global momentum, because of U.S. tech, business, entertainment. It's everywhere.
True. But British English is still the standard taught in many parts of the world, especially where there are historical ties, and it's often the model in language schools.
But what seems to be happening more and more, I think, is less about one winning and more about, well, mutual influence, blending.
Yeah, I see that too. Online, social media, streaming, everything. We're all constantly swimming in both varieties, aren't we? Sometimes in the same conversation, thread, or meme.
And the sources suggest this is leading to this really interesting sort of linguistic pick and mix, especially with younger people.
Like Americans saying cheers or brilliant, maybe.
Yeah, or Brits using awesome or
Yeah.
dude, total naturally.
It's becoming a bit of a global English soup, throwing in ingredients from both sides. The lines are definitely getting blurrier.
Which is actually a sign of a really healthy, vibrant language, isn't it? Adapting, absorbing.
So for you listening, maybe you're learning English, maybe you just deal with people from different places. How do you actually handle all this?
Well, first tip from the sources.
Yeah.
If you're writing, especially anything formal, it's probably best to just pick one style, American or British, and try to stick with it. Consistency looks better.
Good point. Avoid mixing color and organize in the same document.
Exactly. Second, just expose yourself to both. Watch British shows, American movies, listen to music, podcasts, read stuff from both sides. The more you hear and see it, the less weird the differences seem.
Makes sense. Get used to the different flavors.
Precisely. Third, and this is important, don't be afraid to ask. If you hear a word or phrase that completely stumps you, just ask what it means. Then most people are happy to explain.
Yeah, it can even be a good conversation starter.
Totally. And finally, just have fun with it. These aren't mistakes, they're just variations. They make the language richer, more interesting. Laugh about the mix-ups.
It's proof you're engaging with a living language, right?
Exactly that.
Wow, what a journey. From the sound of Buddha to the perils of the fanny pack.
And looking at spelling, grammar, culture.
It's clear how history and just, well, life have shaped these two major dialects of English.
Hopefully this deep dive looking at those sources you shared has kind of unpacked why they're different, but also how they're maybe starting to nudge closer together again in some ways.
It really makes you think about what comes next, doesn't it? With everything mixing so much online, this constant back and forth, what totally new words or phrases or even, I don't know, grammar rules might pop up from this global English fusion in the next, say, 10 years?
It's a fascinating thought. We could be seeing the beginnings of a truly global blended English.
Something for you to ponder. Until our next deep dive.